All right, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's evening edition, if you're in the U.S., of A Sip of Knowledge with Marty Duffy, Liz Rhoades, and Lou Bryson, plus special guests Ian Chang and Eddie Ludlow, who I will let your host give a more formal introduction to in just a minute. Before we get started, I'm Will Hookinga from Zavvy.co. Just as always, want to point out a few ways you can interact with your host and their guests tonight or today during the live stream, depending on where you are. I know we have guests in 2 continents. We have people joining us from all over the world. So to your right, you'll see a chat box. Feel free to say hello. Let us know where you're joining us from. And at the bottom, there's a little button that says Ask a Question. So if you have a question at any point during the show, just type it in down there. I'll be keeping an eye out for those. Last but not least, feel free to invite your friends to join us. There's a share button at the top that makes that easy. But with that said, Marty, Liz, Lou, I'll turn things over to you now.
Thanks there, Will. Hey, and remember, only you can prevent forest fires, which is weird because you'd think that'd be like a forest ranger's job. But no, it's Will's. It's Will's job. Hi, everyone. My name is Martin Duffy. I'm a former senior master whiskey for Diageo, like 14 years. Really nothing compared to how old I am. And then 8 glorious years as the sole national brand ambassador for Benedictine. That's right. Alone. 50 states.
Tremble.
And Puerto Rico. I had to go sell sticky stuff. Then 8 glorious years as co-producer of the Chicago Independent Spirit Expo. And for 6 years, nearly 7 now, I am the sole brand representative in all of North America. Yeah, you go to the Yukon. Who's selling the glassware? Marty. That's right. Boom. Boy, am I exhausted. Lizard?
Amazing. Thanks, everyone, for joining for this special evening edition here in the States. Really exciting hour we have coming up. Today, I'll start out with what I'm imbibing, a little Whistle Pig farm stock.
Yeah. Whoa, all right. Look at you.
Rye is nearly ready for harvest, so digging the rye right now. I'm Liz Rhoades, technical distiller and spirit consultant. I have just over a decade of experience in alcoholic beverage, spanning across several different products and substrates, including beer, rum, vodka, but hey, particular favorite and expertise, whiskey, of course.
That was a W.
My career.
Oh, yeah.
W. Okay, thanks.
Whatever. No, whatever.
Thank you for the clarification that the W is for whiskey.
That is correct.
Spent most of my career at a small little mom and pop company known as Diageo. I'm now currently founder and principal at Spirit Safe Consulting. And hey, want to learn a little bit more about that? If you scroll down to the About the Host section, there's actually a link to my website. So click it, check it out. Lou?
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Liz. We are here tonight. Oh, wait. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. Lou Bryson. I am a whiskey writer. Doing that for quite a while. I was managing editor of Whiskey Advocate magazine for 20 years and currently the happy author of Whiskey Masterclass and The Tasting of the Whiskey. 2 books that I'm flogging and would be happy to sign a copy for anyone who comes by. I am also a senior drinks writer for the Daily Beast, the award-winning Daily Beast website. Just have I've got a piece in editing right now on proof, which is kind of fun. I had a lot of fun with that. Liz, we're actually doing a 2-part thing on proofing. This is the branding, and the next one is the science, which your guys helped me out with it. I got kind of carried away. Yeah, it's a great subject. Anyway, sorry. But, you know, I get excited about whiskey. That's why I write about it. Tonight I am drinking something I've never had before. This is the Highwood 90 5-year-old. Highwood 90 as in proof, 5 years old. Canadian whiskey, and I've had the 90-20. This 95-year-old is a little more floral, a little brasher. Drinking
Did you
well.
say 95-year-old?
90 5-year-old. 90 is the name of the whiskey. Yes.
Ah, well, that's good.
The 95-year-old, there was only that much left. They wouldn't let me have any.
Good marketing, though.
Just a film at that point.
Please introduce our guest, Marty.
Yeah, you betcha. By the way, I'm having some of the stuff we had the other week. The good guys.
Nice. The good guys stuff.
Distiller stuff. Yeah, so anyways, this, by the way, is our first try international show. We have Europe, Asia, the United States all coming together in harmony for at least
right here
1 hour. Then it's
it's back to the animosity.
Hell in a handbasket from there. All right. Today we have two guests, and they're both in conjunction with each other. First off, I'm going to make sure I get everything right and try not to get off script too much. First off is Eddie Ludlow. Eddie is coming to us from Yorkshire. Hello, York, England. Eddie has been educating and talking to people about whiskey since the 1990s, so right around my era. He set up the Whiskey Lounge in 2008 as the Whiskey Lounge in London, as a place for people to learn and evolve their interest at whiskey tasting and festivals all over the UK. He's a keeper of the Quake, which I've yet to been asked to. Sons of bitches. Member of the worshipful company of distillers, has been a judge at the IWSC for 12 years, and has had his first book, the best-selling Whiskey a Tasting Course, published by Random House in 2019. He is now also consulting for our next guest, a guy who almost needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyways. Mr. Ian Chang, master blender, distiller. This guy, first professional master distiller and master blender in the Mandarin-speaking world, which I'm going to consider myself part of, Ian, if you don't mind. He basically catapulted Kavalan into the stratosphere. Everyone is familiar with the wonderful Taiwanese whiskey that's really taken the world by storm over the last number of years. I remember tasting it at Whiskey Fest many years ago for the first time, not knowing what it was. And I remember Westland was on the first table I went to. Kavalan was the last. Yes. I forget everything in between. Of course, there's a lot of whiskeys in between. But I still remember Kavalan, and it was amazing. He has now left Taiwan behind, moved to Japan, everybody. And he is resurrecting. I should say resurrecting. You can correct me later. But I'm going to say resurrecting a very famous brand that is highly sought after, if you can find it. Karuizawa.
Yes.
How was that? Hey, I did it.
Excellent.
Sweet. Yes. Or at the new Komoro Distillery. Tomorrow.
Yes.
Tomorrow.
Komoro.
Komoro.
K.
Komoro.
Right.
Gotcha. Komoro.
Yes.
Kind of like the
3
dragon.
syllables.
Close. Komoro
Oh my
Distillery
Komoro.
in Japan.
Yes.
So, boys, enough of my bastardizing everything. Welcome, Ian and Eddie. Ian and Eddie. I'm telling you, that's the name of a book, a movie. It's good.
I think it's a boy
welcome,
band.
gents.
It's a new whiskey boy band in secret, with a not so secret obsession with Cobra Kai.
It's really impressive that you even coordinated. But is there a background?
They're on opposite sides of the world. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, because Ian and I are like bionic twins. You know, we seem to like the same things without even knowing it. And I discovered that Ian loved Cobra Kai, and I got bought this T-shirt at Christmas time by a good friend. And I just thought a couple of months ago, Ian needs the T-shirt as well. And I think you only got it a couple of weeks ago, didn't you, Ian?
Yes, that's right.
He's very excited about the shirt too. You can tell.
Yeah, he's like, Ian in a bloody shirt.
Well, you guys are like twins, and you could be a boy band. I was thinking like a weird twist on Wham from the '80s. That's what I was thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pulling way back. Liz, look it up. I know. Liz, 2010. That's as far back as their pop culture memory goes. Gents, let's give everybody a little bit of a background on both of you. I mean, I think Ian, a lot of people know who you are, but they don't really know you, the man. So, but we'll get to you in a moment. First, let's talk to your cohort, your Tom Hagen, your consigliere, as we call him over here in the States, your consultant, Eddie. Eddie, tell us a little bit about your background. You go back about 25 years or so. So how did you start in the spirit industry?
Well, I essentially started off walking into a wine and spirit merchant in Newcastle upon Tyne, which is a fantastic northeast city here in the UK, full of characters, needing a job. And at that point, you'll have to picture no beard, ponytail, guitar on my back, because I was a musician, but I needed money. So I walked into this place looking for a job. They made me interview twice to get a sales assistant job. So I had to sell them a bottle of beer because I knew nothing about wine or spirits at the time, but I knew a bit about beer. And I got the job, and that was the start of it, really. I fell in love with both wine and whiskey, but predominantly whiskey. Just, the back shelves just adorned with these mysterious labels and names. And because Newcastle is very far north, it's not far from the border with Scotland. So I then started going into Scotland myself, and just learning and drinking. And learning and drinking and drinking and learning. And then I started kind of, I decided that it wasn't enough to get myself pissed. I mean, learning about whiskey. It was, I needed to get everyone pissed. I mean, learning about whiskey. So I started doing whiskey tastings outside shop hours, and then started putting on whiskey festivals. And I even said to the business that I was working for at the time, "Come on, there's a market for this. People want to learn, and they want to, see what's on offer with whiskey." And they said no, so I just decided to do it for myself. I did a stint with Moet Hennessy as a brand ambassador for Ardbeg and Glenmorangie for a couple of years. But great as those whiskies were, I found the corporate lifestyle soul destroying. If I'm honest,
Really.
And yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's hard to believe.
And I miss talking about all whiskey. With the Whiskey Lounge, it's not about big brands. It's not about small brands. It's just about whiskey. It doesn't matter where it comes from, as long as the stuff tastes good. That's all we care about. And so through the Whiskey Lounge, I met with Jim Swan when I started at the IWSC judging. I remember spending a night talking to him in a restaurant one-to-one, and it was just mind-blowing. The guy was, his legend is absolutely deserved. He was not just knowledgeable, but he was so generous with his knowledge, and he wanted other people to know what he knew. And then when he introduced me to Ian, that just added another layer to our friendship and so on. So yeah, so that kind of brings us up to date. Let's not talk about the pandemic, because it's just,
we usually
crap.
don't. It's kind of like this weird gray area that what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously curtailed our normal main activities, but I kind of feel that if it hadn't have done, in some ways, I wouldn't have had the time to work with Ian from the beginning on this great project that we're going into now. So I count myself as an extremely lucky person. I was very lucky to have the opportunity to write that book. I probably won't write another one because I'm too bloody lazy. But I'm a lucky guy, and I love working in this industry. It's the best industry in the world, the best people, the best product, and the best places.
And folks, I can attest, it's a very beautiful looking book. The Glencairn glass shown twice on the cover and a bunch of times inside. Never really mentioned though by name. So
well, it's kind of like God. It doesn't need to be mentioned. It's implied. You see the subtle
brand name out there. That's right.
It's saying.
All right, kids. Now, and we'll come back to some of what you and Ian were consulting about during this past year. But Ian, in as far as the Mandarin world of distilling is concerned, actually beyond the Mandarin world, you're the man. I mean, everyone talks about you. Everyone sees you. You know, it's funny. I've only seen you in a suit, and you always look a lot older. Right now, you look like a college kid with that shirt on.
The more you drink, the younger you become.
Oh my God, let me start tossing that out.
Yeah.
You look like you're in high school now. So Ian, tell us, I mean, how'd you get into all of this? I mean, how'd you get into distilling?
Right.
Was it through studying chemical engineer, or did you stumble upon it, much like Eddie?
No, not really. It was by serendipity. So 16 years ago, when I came back to Taiwan from the UK, I saw Kavalan. They were looking for someone. So I sent my CV, and 15 years just went by. So it was 2019. Roundabout.
That's it, folks. If you're expecting anything else about Kavalan, you can leave now. That's it. You got the recap.
Time flies.
What was your background in before?
So my background, my major was food technology.
Okay.
So some part of chemistry, organic chemistry, came in handy. So it was about end of 2019, round about the same time when Liz left Diageo, that I decided to move on because it was becoming too hectic, when it comes to schedules. I used to see Lou 3 times a year, all the way from San Francisco, Chicago to New York for Whiskey Fest. And also, all the continental European shows and also Asia Pacific shows. I was never home. And that's
so what
why
he's
I
saying
thought,
is he was seeing too much of me. Is why he quit. He couldn't.
You never see too much of Lou.
I'm going to take this personally.
Correlation.
You gave me. You inspired me to move on.
Very good. Very good.
Yes. So that was when I decided to join Karuizawa Distillers. And that's when I invited Eddie to join us to be our chief educator for our whiskey academy. So that's pretty much it.
Now, when you joined Kavalan, and I won't dwell on it too much, but when you joined them, were they already distilling and you were kind of joining in kind of midstream, or do you look at this new project as, hey, this is what I like, I'm starting from scratch, from there, nothing, we're going up.
So like Eddie always said that, he always said that he's a lucky guy. I also say that I'm a very lucky guy as well, because when I joined Kavalan, it was from zero, from scratch.
Wow.
And then to up and running. So actually, Karuizawa Distillers, this is my second time to establish a brand new distillery from scratch. So fingers crossed. Hopefully, this is the last time that I do it.
Doubt it.
Oh, no, another. How many years were you with Kavalan?
Before I retired. I was with Kavalan for almost 16 years.
16 years. Another 16 years.
Yes.
Just be like locusts.
That's right.
Every 16 years, you move on. You rise again.
If I see Lou too many times.
I'm quitting. I gotta quit.
Be careful. Sometimes you might see Lou in your sleep. That happens.
The new distillery,
Yes.
Komoro. How big a distillery is it?
So to be honest, Komoro is not a big distillery. In terms of production, it is between 100,000 to 150,000 LPA per year. Yeah, so it's
pretty small,
it's a small distillery.
Yeah.
That's right. So it's all about quality, not quantity.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I understand it's located fairly close to where Karuizawa was.
That's right. Fairly close to the old one. But I think I should correct
original
Martin
distillery.
just
Is
now.
that correct?
It's not a resurrection of the old Karuizawa. So our mission is actually two-stage. Stage one is to bring back the distilling industry back to the region. And then stage two, together with Koji and Eddie, we plan to create the new legend for the region and also Japan in general. That's our ambition for the future.
I was half right. Resurrecting the distilling in the area. Give me that, Ian.
So, I guess a question with that in terms of, bringing distilling back to the region, there's no real, from a consumer perspective of what that style looks like. So I guess that's the first question is, starting from scratch, what is the inspiration? And, also, I guess just from a Kaizen perspective, like, is that being implemented in terms of this is going to be, the future of what we want for the region?
So the inspiration always comes from our mutual friend with Eddie, Dr. Jim Swan. His philosophy is to make sure that when you distill, when you produce whiskey, you make sure that it is rich and complex, but also very clean at the same time. Clean in terms of free of off notes. Something. Sometimes you find some sulfury notes in a new make or from the cask and so on. So what we plan to do is to make sure that it is a good whiskey, full-bodied, and also with substance for our consumers to enjoy. Yeah.
Well, with that said, where would you be getting your stills? What type of stills would you be using?
So for this project, we buy all our equipment from Rhoades, from Scotland.
Okay.
So in terms of size and shape, I think Eddie and I will keep it a secret for now, because it's still being fabricated at Rhoades. We will let you know when the time is right. Much closer to the opening. First hand, Martin.
Okay, a sip of knowledge is sending Lou Bryson out there on a fact-finding tour, so you might have to see Lou again. You will in the bushes.
Stop threatening him, guys. Don't threaten him. Oh.
And what is that timeline? So I know you're still sort of in the design scoping phase. It sounds like. So what are we talking about in timeline?
Okay, so we hope we plan to construct the distillery this summer, and then to complete the distillery by summer next year. So hopefully our first drop of new make will be produced by end of next year. So that's the rough timeline between now and end of next year. Yes.
So Eddie, you've already, obviously Ian's he's relying on you. He's getting a lot of input from you. So what kind of advice are you giving and what kind of consultation there, Tom?
So I suppose, you know, some of the first stuff we worked on was, and you've kind of touched upon this, and you know, makes it all the more important for us, is this kind of comparison, which is only natural with the old Karuizawa Distillery, because Mr. Shimaoka, who is along with Ian, the co-founder and the business driving force, you know, his family and he live in Karuizawa, you know, half of the year, and they have done for 20 plus years. So they have a deep kind of affinity for the area. And he would walk past the old Karuizawa Distillery daily on his commute. And when it closed, you know, being a local to the area, he was obviously quite upset by it and felt that it was a shame for the area to lose that kind of distilling industry. And so I think it must have triggered something in him at that point, which he perhaps didn't know about until a bit later on, when he decided, okay, well, this is now what I want to do, which is to resurrect distilling in the area by building the Komoro Distillery around 7 miles away. So then became, you know, the process of you know, finding the correct land, and you know, and all that implies. So really, it was around the messaging of and the use of the Karuizawa name, because it is a powerful name in the whiskey world, and we recognize that, and we really don't want to be seen to be riding on the coattails of, you know, what was almost like the Van Gogh of the whiskey world. You know, it became popular and then very, very expensive because of the rarity, but only subsequent to the distillery dying, essentially. So, you know, we don't want to be seen to be riding on the coattails of that. So it was very much, you know, this is how we need to try and position ourselves so that we're not doing that, because it's, you know, we have Ian, and we have a wonderful area, and we have, you know, other wonderful things going on within the concept of the distillery, that we don't need to necessarily talk about the name Karuizawa too often. So that's probably the first thing that we chimed in on. But it's been, yeah, I mean, it's just all facets. So, you know, I've been involved with the logo design, the branding. You know, Ian and I talk about the whiskey itself quite regularly. I'm very keen to get involved in terms of you know, helping tastings and things like this with Ian, quality control and whatever. So, you know, anything we can do to help get this fantastic project off the ground, and particularly how it's perceived in other markets as well, because obviously there's the perception in Japan and the Pan-Asian region, but you know, it's a very different thing to the American market and the European market. And because we've had experience dealing with international brands in the UK and Europe, I think, you know, we're fairly well positioned to help them as much as possible.
So, yeah, I guess with that, and I mean, I feel like not many distilleries, whiskey specifically, does this, but I've definitely seen it with, you know, more formulated spirits, I guess. In terms of breaking into all these different international markets, is that something, because you mentioned kind of different consumer perceptions. I guess I think of this as, you know, preference, you know, cultural preference, or even humanistic terroir. Is that something that you guys are exploring in your portfolio to potentially cater to different cultural preferences?
Do you mind me answering, Ian, or do you want to answer that one?
Eddie, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think our simple aim is just to make the best possible whiskey. You know, that's
not geared
for us. Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, we're going to be making so little of it anyway.
Yeah,
and it's going to be Ian's reputation speaks for itself. I mean, I don't think I've tasted a bad whiskey that Ian's made. Maybe he has, but I haven't. And so, I really don't think there's the need to necessarily market it to differing sections of consumers. I think we want to be really honest that our product is very simple. It's it's very sourced as locally as possible and all that kind of thing. So I mean, it will. I think we think that it will appeal to whiskey drinkers globally. I think our main issue will be having enough of it to sell. That's going to be the main issue.
Do you have any plans for? I mean, what do you sell until you have whiskey?
Well, no. I was going to make a joke and say we're going to make all sorts, but at the Komoro Distillery, Ian wouldn't like it. No, we're not going to make anything but whiskey at Komoro, right, Ian?
Yes, that's right. That's correct. Single malt.
So you've got the capital to just keep making whiskey until you can start selling whiskey.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay, great.
I mean, we might sell fridge magnets and baseball caps and things, but
sure.
But yeah. Yeah,
Hey,
and
dude, you are not the Japanese rep. Ease up.
I'm not now, Lou, but
You're stepping on tootsies.
There's room for
And
mobility.
co-branded Cobra Kai T-shirts.
Nice.
Well,
nice.
You may joke, you may jest, but we have discussed potential Cobra Kai tie-in bottlings.
Wow.
Okay.
Nice.
Get Ralph Macchio out there.
So we're finally getting a sneak peek. Okay.
Done. Eagle Fang Dojo. That's going to be the
Eagle Fang.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Yeah, only in minis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the move you've made from Taiwan to Japan, they have the new regulations in there now. Right. What do you see that's going to be the guidelines? What do you see as being different? What do you see being the same? Will it harsh your mellow, as a lot of distillers over here say? Will it be a walk in the park? I mean, and would you also, since they're very similar to Scotland's guidelines, regulations, will you ever look to Scotland for a little, I kind of like that, what they're doing there?
Yes. So as Lou emphasized just now, at this stage, I think it is just still a guideline. But Eddie and I, we really welcome, the day that if it becomes regulation as well. And to be honest, we are prepared to go much more above and beyond that. You know why? Because at Kavalan, due to Jim Swan's influence, everything from Kavalan is produced in-house. The only thing that is imported is the malted barley and also some of our casks from around the world. For example, ex-bourbon casks from the US. So, looking at this guideline and then maybe in the future turn it into regulation, we think that everything will be pretty much the same as what I used to do at Kavalan before, except that, I now produce whiskey in a cold climate, which means I can produce whiskey with age statement, which I couldn't do so before due to the hot climate. So this is something Eddie and I and Koji as well, my partner in Japan, we all very much look forward to, for the future. Well,
that's just it too. So do you you prescribe to what some distillers think of as far as distilling at various times a year and getting different flavors? I mean, do you get that, or does anyone over in Japan or throughout Asia play with that, or is the temperatures don't vary as widely that it doesn't even come into play?
Sorry, Martin, could you
repeat that? Was it confusing?
Yes.
I mean, I can kind of confuse myself. Does outside temperature, the climate, affect when you distill, what you distill at any given time? I mean, there's been, especially in Kentucky, Tennessee, there was the whole idea that in colder months you distill and it made your whiskey smoother. Could be a bunch of horse hockey, but I mean, do you guys go with anything like that over in Asia?
No.
Yeah, there you go.
What we plan to do is to make sure that the new make is consistent throughout the year. But in the end, blending is required to make sure that it is consistent once again by doing the blending operation. So basically, you produce the same new make throughout the year, all the time.
Oh.
Even at Kavalan, and that's also what we plan to do at Komoro as well.
What about and Eddie? This goes to you too. I mean, the two of you will both of you be involved in the actual blending, the vatting of the malts, or are they all going to be single cask, or you probably haven't gotten that far?
Well, Ian essentially is the master blender as well as the master distiller, so ultimately it will fall to Ian to blend to his will, as it were.
I like that, blend his will. You must blend to his will.
Nice.
Exactly.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you. I'm here all night. But I think. You already have been. I've said to Ian on many occasions, and I think that he likes the idea of having a second opinion. And he's known me long enough to know that I would never describe myself as an expert. But I've tasted and nosed enough whiskey that I think I know what's good and what isn't. So if I can help Ian to produce the best whiskey possible, then that's what I will do. Of course, it'll be my pleasure.
Well, and too, I mean, so many master blenders, especially over in Scotland, have a crew that help them. It's usually not just one guy, because you're freaking
crew, posse, whatever.
Yeah. Team.
And this has probably already been touched on, and I apologize for that, but with that size production, I'm assuming all you're doing is malt whiskey, correct? Single malt whiskey?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, that seems like an endeavor, boys. Now, Eddie, you're building an education program around the brand, but also will it be based around the category of Japanese whiskey, Asian whiskeys in general?
Well, to be honest, all whiskey. I think that as with the Whiskey Lounge, we've followed the progress of whiskey for many years, from the birth of the popularity of Japanese whiskey, then through to Taiwanese whiskey, Swedish whiskey, and so on and so forth. Not forgetting obviously American whiskey, but that's a different matter altogether, isn't it? So as I said, I think it's important that people understand that there is no best place to produce whiskey anymore. Great whiskey can be made pretty much anywhere where there's a will and a way, and a couple of $1 million wouldn't hurt. So my ethos is always start how you mean to go on, and educate from the ground up, and be completely transparent, and don't. Obviously, you have to give the kudos and the historical legacy of Irish and Scottish distilling, because without that, you wouldn't have what we currently have. But now is such an exciting time to be a whiskey lover. Such good whiskey is made everywhere, and it's important to spotlight that. But I think, for me, the exciting thing is really to be able to do this not just online or in a pub meeting room or whatever. It's to be able to do it at a distillery, a working distillery, where you have someone of Ian's stature overseeing things and able to pop in now and again and contribute to classes and things. But what we want to emphasize is it's not just going to be for people who want to start making whiskey themselves, although we can certainly cater for that. It will be for people of all levels of ability, or however you want to call it. People who maybe just starting on their whiskey journey, and we want to give them the right education from the start and not kind of feed them with marketing bullshit. We want to give them the real deal from the beginning. And I think how better to inspire someone to go forward with their whiskey journey than to do that at a distillery.
Yeah, no, and especially the Japanese distillery. I mean, it's not something that everyone gets to do. Lou, have you been over?
I have not.
Oh,
I've not. Yeah.
It is? Have you been over? See, I've never been. I'm like a vampire, guys. I have to be invited over. So
I thought you were going to say something about a mirror. Right?
Well, the mirrors. No mirrors. Ditch the garlic too. All right. But yes, I mean, everyone who has ever gone over and gone to one of those distilleries comes back with a glazed look in their eye, because it's always beautiful settings and just fantastic workmanship and Japanese whiskey. I mean, Eddie, you were talking about whiskey and how it is amazing. There's different parts of the world that have these phenomenal whiskeys popping up, and it's making whiskey drinking fun, in that you go and seek these out before they become too hot. I mean, Ian's former distillery, I won't mention the name anymore, was I mean, those bottles go for a ton of money now. Which I should have invested back in the day. But I mean, Japanese whiskey has I think it was Whiskey Advocate back during Lou's days there. You guys named one of the Japanese whiskeys the best whiskey in the world. I think it was you guys.
We had, I think we were Whiskey Fest was the first event in the U.S. to feature Japanese whiskeys. Chicago, actually, back in 2004, 2005, something like that. In the
Binny's Basement days, right?
Oh no, we were never there. That was Brett trying to steal our thunder.
Not the Whiskey Fest, but I mean the whiskey.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they were at Whiskey Fest in the ballroom, and I remember, at the beginning of the fest, they had no idea how it was going to go, and by the end of the fest, they were out of whiskey. People just went crazy for it.
Well, it's hot. I mean, it's been hot, and a lot of Japanese whiskey is very, very difficult to find. So I think you guys, but now the regulations ask for a minimum of 3 years, correct? The guidelines.
That's right, the guideline.
So if you follow those guidelines, that means if you start distilling next year, about 2005, but you probably won't release anything that young, right?
Should be 2026.
Is when you're
around the time.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Karuizawa almost there.
Karuizawa.
Yes. That's right.
Komoro.
Komoro. I love you, Komoro. Now the Well, the thing that too, with Karuizawa, Karuizawa, I forget the other one, the famous one. I think you're right, Eddie. There will be this kind of, some people might have expectations, but you have a different distillery name, and with Ian and you guys are coming up from scratch out of the ground. I don't know if people will, look to see, it doesn't taste like the former whiskey. No, it's not.
The thing I keep thinking of is Michter's, because a lot of people wanted that to not be good. I think a lot of people actually wanted them to fail, and their solution to that was to just make incredibly good whiskey.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's all you have to do. Just make really, really, really good whiskey. Simple.
And
That's right.
I guess, the question around this, and forgive me if you already talked about this while I was trying to figure out the Wi-Fi situation here on the
trying to get sunlight to hit your generators.
Just around, a couple things, Eddie, I guess, from an education standpoint, when you're educating consumers around, Japanese whiskey, what are some of the main talking points? Is it, just about, here's the distillery, here's what we're doing here are the ingredients we're using, or is it a broader conversation? Because I think about what you mentioned earlier is globalization of whiskey, right? There's new, new geographies being, emerging, and is the conversation is we're just out here making good whiskey in these different geographies, or is it more about, regional styles, and is that the education?
It's an interesting question, because obviously Japanese whiskey has been around. Well, you think Yamazaki Distillery will be 100 years old, and was it 2023? I think.
Yes, 2 years.
So Japanese whiskey has been around for an awful long time, but it's grown up in such a different way to Scotch whiskey, and almost at a very accelerated rate. But then you look at the number of distilleries, and yes, they've grown exponentially in the last 5+ years, but in reality, up until that point, there were still very just a couple of handful of distilleries, so not really a chance to explore regional styles. And to be honest, if you talk about Scotland and regional styles, that whole argument has pretty much been blown up anyway, because so many distilleries breach the so-called regional styles anyway, and it's just it was a very convenient and easy to understand pigeonholing exercise back in the 90s, which was very successful. The classic malts and all that kind of stuff. It really did help people understand a little bit more, and to perhaps decide where they were going to go next. But I think for me, the excitement of whiskey now is that you can make almost any style of whiskey anywhere.
Yeah.
Obviously, in certain warmer climates, it's limited slightly, and I think that's what Ian is very excited to be distilling in a cooler climate, in a temperate climate where there are 4 distinct seasons, and it's a new challenge for him to. He's used to producing that consistency of spirit in that very warm, hot climate, let's face it, in Taiwan, versus trying to do the same thing in a very different climate. But in terms of educating people on Japanese whiskey, I think it's the same as anywhere else, really. It's really looking at individual distilleries, individual distillers, and what they're doing. It's not a question of, they produce this style here and this style there. that's kind of gone out of the window. So it's more talking to people about the history of Japanese whiskey. You know, how it first was, when it first conceived, with Masataka, and then I do believe that the new Japanese guidelines will also be an element of the story, because that's hopefully, we're now talking past tense about whiskies that have been labeled as Japanese whiskey, when actually, is it Japanese whiskey? Possibly not.
Yeah.
So I think those are the more salient talking points, really.
Then, with all that said, though, guys, you have they're trying to start the American single malt category over here. You have obviously single malts in Ireland and Scotland, and India. You have single malts down in New Zealand, Australia, just about anywhere there's single malts. So what makes Japanese single malts unique, or even on a broader spectrum, Asian single malts, if there is anything unique to them, that, especially since Japanese has such a history with Scotch. What makes Japanese whiskeys unique? And this goes out to both you cats.
That's a question that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Ian, so you guys better answer it.
So
no pressure.
I think Japanese.
Please go ahead.
So I think Japanese whiskey is all about being in a very harmonious state. When a consumer enjoys a dram of Japanese whiskey, it's all about the harmony once again. So similar to, I think I would say, Scotch in a way. And as Martin mentioned many times, Japanese whiskey was, many years ago, 100 years ago, inspired and also influenced by Scotch whiskey. And therefore, between myself, Kavalan, and what I'm going to make in the future, there's one influence that, influenced me a lot. And that was, once again, Dr. Jim Swan from Scotland. So his philosophy is to produce a whiskey that is well balanced, just like life itself, he always said. So, if you can make sure that you can balance the flavor, the mouthfeel, the complexities, I think that's what Japanese whiskey is all about.
You agree with this, Eddie? Or let's have a fight. You disagree with Ian?
No, I don't. I don't disagree with Ian. I think having worked with Mr. Shimaoka and his team, which is a very small team, by the way, and very very friendly and engaging. But the Japanese way of doing things, and I think Ian would agree with this, is extremely meticulous and very thoughtful. There'll be meetings where Ian and I are sitting there, and we've discussed something, and we'll sit there, and there'll be literally 5 minutes of silence while everyone else is considering and thinking about a response, or if a response is necessary. And it's definitely taught me a great deal, because like yourselves, I've never been to Japan, although I'm hoping to get over there, bloody pandemic allowing. And it's just a very different way of thinking and a way of life, I believe. And I think that obviously will have an impact on the whiskey making, a more considered and perhaps more meticulous approach. You look at the whiskey makers at Suntory and Nika, and they're notoriously detailed in their thinking and their whiskey making detail. And I think that what's exciting about this project is that we're obviously working in Japan in the Japanese culture, but we've got Ian from Taiwan and myself and Amanda here in the UK bringing a kind of European and a Taiwanese influence into this. So it's going to be slightly different again, from a completely pure Japanese whiskey distillery, if you like. So hopefully that will just increase the multitude of layers and interest.
And Ian, did you have to make the move? You moved from Taiwan, your native country, to Japan, or do you commute?
Right.
Is there a fast boat or a train?
No.
Plane? No.
So, Martin, I plan to relocate to Japan, hopefully by July or August. So Japan will be my second home in the future. I mean, third home, to be honest. First one, Taiwan. Second, UK. Third, Japan. Yes. So in the future, if you have time, please come and see us in Japan.
You have been to Japan to visit, though.
Yes, many times.
Oh, thank
And
God!
also,
One of us had. Thank God.
Well, from Taiwan, it's like going to
Showing
Wisconsin.
Japanese whiskey, and none of us.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So from Taiwan to Japan is like I would say, perhaps from New York to Chicago.
No, I was going to say Chicago
very
to
far.
Wisconsin. Like you
Yeah,
just,
that's
if you were
right.
connected, just drive up.
Exactly.
No biggie. So about 800 miles, but you have to fly, right? Would you take a boat?
You have to.
I think you should make some whiskey, put it on a boat, just sail it around
Right.
Japan a few times.
That can be part of our experiments in the future.
That's free. Another idea. Truck that up, Lizard. Another free idea just tossed out there.
Yes.
Sip of knowledge. Sip of knowledge.
Not your bad.
And by the way, speaking of Whiskey Academy, which Eddie mentioned just now, in the future, like universities, you have the visiting professors. So perhaps in the future, Martin, Lou, and Liz, you can be our visiting speakers.
All right.
Give a dance class.
Join us. That's right.
Thank you.
I think Liz would be very good. Lou, you
yeah.
could write a book called The Whiskey Masterclass.
She is the brainy one.
I can show people where to sit. That would be my job.
Sure.
Set things up. Put out tasting.
Have you got a qualification for that?
What?
I often tell people where to sit. That's my.
Send
Can
us
you
your
pass
CV.
out?
Yeah,
Can you pass out unsalted saltines? Can that be a part of your role too?
that would be it. Unsalted saltines, spring water, little drinking straws as pipettes. I know all the old tricks.
Wait a second. We should have them branded though, right? Straws, a sip of knowledge, straws.
How about Glencairn pipettes that are branded? Let's say a sip of knowledge, not to influence you guys any, but
Ooh, sweet.
available at the end of this month from Glencairn.
When do they come in chocolate? Because I want one of those in chocolate.
Chocolate.
A chocolate pipette.
All right.
I'm not sure about the functionality.
For my coffee.
That won't last too long. Hey, by the way, Ian and Eddie, we have Brad Krause, our man in Panama, who's on every week. God bless him. And he says he's been over to Japan at least, you don't know, at least 5 times. And he thoroughly enjoyed Japanese whiskey and looks forward to your whiskey. I'd like to go down and see what kind of whiskey Brad has down there in Panama.
I would like to try that too.
Yeah.
Well, Slanger, Brad. Thank you.
Cheers.
You're always welcome.
Hey, hold up that glass, Ian. What are you drinking out of? The cut crystal, baby.
How about that?
That's right. From Glencairn as well.
The heavy one.
And is that your initials?
Yes,
Oh,
I
well.
see.
Nice.
Yeah.
There goes your gift prize for this week. What I usually send all of our guests. And okay, Never mind. Ian's already gone. I'll send you something else. We'll see what else they'll.
Okay.
You wear cufflinks?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
All right,
Okay.
I'll send you a bunch of cufflinks. Cufflinks.
Yeah.
All right.
So bringing it back.
That's what Liz does.
Yep.
So in terms of the education program, it sounds like, right, obviously we're a year and change out for the distillery to be, built and functional. Are there plans to kick off some of these educational programs ahead of that, or will they be virtual, or what does that look like?
Well, yeah, that's a very perceptive question, if I might say. We've discussed, and we're hoping to bring some of the tasting online, perhaps with myself and Ian, as a sort of comedy boy band duo, to the world ahead of the distillery opening. So yeah, watch this space. That's certainly something we're hoping to get online.
Through TikTok, it's sounding like.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy dancing and all that kind of stuff. But yes, that's certainly something that we might produce ahead of the
corgis,
distillery.
maybe some ducks. Those are always good.
Yeah.
So I think Lou, you mentioned this. I mean, you're not going to do a vodka or a gin or anything else in the meantime while your whiskey's laying down. But since Ian, you're a master blender, you could blend. And would you think about blending something in the interim before your own whiskey matures? Put out a blended Japanese whiskey.
No, but this topic was raised before. But,
We did.
At the later stage, we might produce blend, but that is something way down the road.
Okay.
But for the meantime, with Komoro single malt distillery, we will produce only single malt. But in the future, we plan to have second and third distilleries. So that's when we can think of our own blended malt or even blends.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. If I asked it again, that's what I do to trip you up. I do that to trip up guests, see if they're paying attention. So, boom, again.
And how's that working out?
Ian.
Yeah, some weeks better than others.
So Martin, I think whiskey blending is all about memory. And memory is all up here, as Mr.
Miyagi
said to me.
This is where I blend, right in here.
So I think what he's signaling you here is that he's not going to get tripped up on a memory thing because he's a blender.
Yeah.
I have a feeling if Ian and I took an IQ test next to each other, I'd be actually cheating off his IQ test.
You'd be cheating yourself.
Oh, nice.
Oh, were you a teacher?
Yeah, I'm my former principal over here.
That was probably the perfect response.
Thank you, Liz.
I would kind of be cheating myself. Hey, by the way, Brad did make a single malt. They're bottling in November. You were just talking, Eddie. Here.
Weather single malt.
A single malt in Panama. Panama! Brad, use Van Halen's Panama song as your theme song.
Oh, tremendous. Well, R.I.P. Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Eddie.
No cease and desist orders. I don't see that in the future.
Not a problem at all.
It's Panama. That place is lawless. It's like the Old West. You can use anything you want.
It's very thin anyway. It's got that going.
That's right. Yeah. Try to find it. How about packaging, guys? Have you guys given a lot of thought to? I mean, is that way down the line.
Other-
But I don't know. You never know. I've seen distillers at some of these conferences have, they already have their shirts, not,
not Cobra Kai shirts.
not Cobra Kai shirts, but
they're not that cool.
They already have their own shirts. They have their logo design. They have all this. I go, oh, hey, great.
Yeah.
Can I visit your distillery? And they go, we don't have one yet. And I go,
Well,
what are you doing? And it's like they're playing pretend. They have everything else thought out, but
they're selling merch.
The process of designing the logo, which we haven't revealed yet to the wider world, was extremely meticulous, as I was describing earlier on, and we were all very keen that the logo spoke of the project, the area itself, the people, the culture, Ian himself, so it was a really, really painstaking project, and we are excited to reveal it. I don't imagine that Ian and I will be walking around with logoed shirts like this all the time.
More like leather jackets.
But the logo, the emblem logo, whatever you want to call it, it really actually means something, and we were very keen to ensure that the Japanese guys particularly were leading that side of things, because it's a Japanese distillery in Japan, and therefore it should be led culturally by the Japanese. So it took a while, but we think it's worth it, and we're quite excited to share it eventually. Not tonight, sorry. And I think it's very exciting.
Does Komoro mean something? Does it have a English translation?
No, that's just the name of place.
The place might have a meaning. No? Land?
It has a meaning.
Small distilleries?
No.
Sure, we can come up with something.
It's too difficult to translate into English. But it means something. It means something. Small.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yes, that's right.
Small dragons. It does sound
not
like
dragon.
Komodo.
Distillery.
Sounds a little like Komodo. So it could mean small dragon.
I'll find out. I'll find out and email to you, Martin.
We should have been prepared for that, Ian.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm telling you. I knew all the translations of all the Scottish distilleries for a while. Then I just couldn't keep up as they started really coming around.
But there is a link below, actually, to the coming soon landing page. So I'm sure, but I think you have a few things up on the website, links to social, a little bit of background on the project. So check that out and check it sometime in the near future for maybe some reveals.
And what about the whiskey lounge? Eddie, is that website up? Is there people go visit that?
Yeah, I mean, the Whiskey Lounge website has been around since since you were a boy, I think. But it's chugging along.
Sorry, I'm very sorry.
And we're looking forward to putting events on. I don't know about you guys in the US. In the UK here, we're getting to the point where our freedoms are being
re-gifted.
Regifted, yeah, good word. So yeah, I mean, for me though, one of the main things is finally being able to get over to Japan and seeing Ian and Shimeoka-san and everyone else, because I think it's going to be incredible when it finally happens.
Yeah, maybe I'll put that on my little bucket list for next year. That might be kind of
absolutely.
Cool thing to
Oh
do.
my God, that's on my bucket list. Has been
No,
for years.
you guys should definitely come over, and when we're up and running, it'll be great fun.
Yeah, you can bring Liz over. This is what Liz does. I mean, obviously, Ian, you're the big cheese, but
Yeah.
I understand. That's
It's
the
like
real
a
reason
Liz
you
is a really
went
good
to,
assistant
consulting
cheese.
competition.
She's a really good side cheese. And those little, you're the big wedge, but she's like that little wedge on the cutting board.
She's like a little sprinkle of Parmesan. Is that what you're going for?
That's what you are. I'm parsley. I'm just parsley. Nobody.
Can I
I'm
just say-
usually taken off the cutting board. Lou
Liz.
is Limburger.
Liz,
I'm
I
happy
wouldn't
to be a
take
beer
that-
on the
I wouldn't
table.
take that from him.
That's fine for me.
Don't take that from him. Jeez.
I'm hungry. I'm thirsty now.
Right? See?
See,
All right. Well, I think that is it, kids. We really appreciate it, especially for both of you guys. I mean, because you're at either end of the old clock. Ian, I suppose you're early to bed, early to rise, anyways. Though, distillers are like farmers.
Exactly.
Seems that way.
Or up early, milking the still, getting it going. But Eddie, it's after 1 your time, is it not?
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 10 past 12 minutes past 1.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That's okay. I've still got stuff to do.
This is big. Will, we should put this in the archives, a special little archive, because it's the first international show. Plus 3 different states. Lou in
Tri-continent.
Pennsylvania, Liz, and I don't know what state Liz is in. You never know what state Liz. Liz is like a whack-a-mole. She's always popping up in different states. And then I'm Ian. If you really want 4 different seasons, Chicago, come and distill here.
So sometimes in 2 weeks.
So
In January.
is that where you based, Martin? Is that where you based?
Yeah.
In Chicago.
Yes,
Okay.
they built the city around me many years ago. But yes, that's where I'm center of the U.S. of A. It's perfect.
Well, before we go, I again just wanted to say thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for the sacrifice of your time.
Really amazing chatting with you guys. Did want to just preface for next week, heading over to another state, another side of the country. We'll be having on Jay Colshoe of Rogue Ale and Spirits out in so that'll be a really exciting show for sure. See what they have going on over there. So be sure to sign up and check back with us next week.
Cool.
All right. Sweet. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks again, guys. Ian,
Thank you.
Eddie. Ian, good to see you again. Eddie, nice to
Thank
meet
you,
you.
Lou.
Don't
Lovely to meet
lock
you guys.
yourselves down. Get out
Thanks,
there.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Cheers,
having us
Martin.
on. It's been great.
Cheers, Eddie.
Cheers, guys. Good luck to all y'all.
Cheers, everyone.
Good night.
Night.